What's up, y'all? Thank you for tuning in to DWC Farms. In this video, hopefully I'll either be able to help you prevent root rot or help you eliminate it if you're currently having those issues. I have unfortunately, yet fortunately, run into root rot several times now, and the only reason I say fortunately is because I'm able to make a video like this to help the next person out, and hopefully they can in turn help the next person out. Or, you know what I'm saying, someone may see something I do, and then they just turn around and just put in the comments like, hey, actually you should try this. So as long as we're all getting help from each other, we're all learning, we're all building, we're all growing together, that's all that matters, and that's what I want to be a part of. Love this community. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But without further ado, let's get into the video. I won't be diving into what exactly root rot is because there's so much information out there that covers this, and most of you have probably already done some research and you've come to the conclusion that, hey, I have root rot and I need to either prevent it or eliminate it. So that's what I'm going to try to help you with today. Everything I'll say today is stuff I've actually experienced and gone through and actually have done to overcome these trials. So it's going to be all from an experience standpoint, and I'm not saying I have a bunch of experience, but when it comes to root rot, I've dealt with it several times, and I was able to make it to harvest on all those grows. I was able to save my plants, so I feel like I could do the due diligence and passing this information on to the next person. There's also going to be some stuff that I have not tried myself, but numerous of you have told me about it and that you've had success, so I will be pushing that on to the next person as well. Alright, so in DWC, as we all know it, or some of you that are new to DWC or have not tried it yet, but most of us know that it is less forgiving. Everything just has to be to a T. It has to be on point, because if not, you're going to run into issues, and DWC does not care. It's not going to sit there and hold your hand like soil. It's not going to give you that buffer. It's like, no, one minute you're thriving, the next minute you're fighting for dear life for your plant. Now, when I talk about things being on point, what I mean is that's going to include things as your correct temperatures, the correct amount of aeration, your pH, and your nutrients. You want to make sure everything is clean and sterile. Now, those are all relating to root rot. For this purpose, we all know like things like your light and all that. That's across the board for every grow medium, but I'm talking about DWC exclusively and root rot exclusively. If all those things are in line, then you should be able to have a good grow in DWC. Now I say should because there's things that are going to be out of your control. You know, there's just things that are going to happen. It could be the genetics of the plant, but for the most part, if you have all those things in line, you should have little to no problems throughout your entire grow. Alright, now with all that stuff out of the way, let's really dive into it. First, I want to go over eliminating, and then afterwards I'll follow that up with some preventive measures you can take. But most of you are probably in a rush and you want to learn how to eliminate this really fast, so I'm going to go over that first for you guys. Alright, so the steps I'm about to go over are everything that I've done personally, and it's all through my experience. Like, what works for me might not work for you, or what works for you might not work for me, but in general, a lot of these things should work for all of us. And if not, well, if you have that information out there, go ahead and drop that in the comment. Help the next person, because I may not cover everything and I may not know everything. This is all from my perspective and my experience. Alright, so you're in your tent, you're checking your buckets, boom, slime, right? You got some buildup. One of the first things I do is I decrease my light intensity. Why? Because, well, your plants, you don't want them focused on growth when they're trying to heal. Imagine they're trying to do two things at once. They're trying to like, oh, we want to rapidly grow, because in DWC, we know things move pretty rapidly, right? But when they stop, they stop. So don't force something to keep going when it's trying to stop. It's just, imagine standing over a cliff, you're trying to stop yourself and somebody's trying to push you, right? You're just running into a slippery slope, right? But you do not have to do this step. That is something I do. I decrease the light intensity, or I raise it up depending on my light. I have dimmable lights, but you just want to lower that light intensity. Alright, that is one thing you do not have to do. Some people may not have a dimmable light, and some people may not be able to lift their light even higher to decrease the light intensity. So at the end of the day, you do not have to do that. That is just something I've had, and it's helped me and it's helped others. So that's why I recommend it. Next up, we're going to talk about some pruning, right? It's like the trim gel before trim gel, right? You're trimming the roots before you make it to harvest and trim those plants, because you're going to make it to harvest. I'm telling you right there, fear not, you're going to make it through. Just push through. Don't restart. I mean, sometimes you may have to give up, but hey, keep pushing. You got this. We're going to try to get you there, and I'm going to try my best to make sure you get to harvest. If there's one thing I can tell you, is I'm going to try my best to get you to harvest. If this video does not work, hopefully we can get some one-on-one, or I can ask somebody else so we can get you there. But like I said, we're going to be doing some pruning, right? And the reason we want to do the pruning is, first and foremost, you want to make sure, do you have any new growth? Do you have any newer roots that aren't affected by the root rot? And what I mean affected is like, is there any visible like brown, the slime, the nasty stuff, the stuff that looks like, hey, that's not supposed to be there, right? So if you have some stuff that isn't affected by that, then all right. What I like to do is I just trim. I prune them away. Anything with the gunk on there is like, gotta go. Gotta cut that bitch off, right? I'm sorry for my cuss words. I'm so sorry. I may or may not bleep that out. But I always cut some of that, the gunk out of there. Just want to get it out of there because I'm going to be doing a water change. And imagine this, right? Imagine you go take a shit. You don't wipe your ass, but guess what? You change your drawers. Now, explain to me, does that make sense to you? You know, you still got a dirty ass crack, right? And I'm not saying you have to do this. Some people don't do that. Hey, I'm not knocking you, but I'm just trying to relate it to something. Some people may not see anything wrong. They'd be like, I don't get that analogy. Like, what are you saying? But if you get me, you get me, right? And I have a eye twitch. I'm sorry. Whew. I do that is because I'm going to be changing the water, and I don't want to pretty much put that gunk right back into the new water, because guess what? It may separate and fall off the roots, and now it's right back into my water, and it's recirculating. It's building back up, right? The thing I'm trying to combat is still present, so I need to get rid of it. And I'm telling you, it has worked for me this far, and I do recommend it. You'll get that new growth coming in, but if you don't have any new growth or whatever, you might have to just suffice with it, but you should have some new growth. You should have some unaffected stuff under there. You just may be in the hydrants and clay pebbles hiding, but just inspect to make sure you really got new growth coming before you just prune everything out. If everything's covered, then you may have to just make sure you got some new growth. There may be a point where it's root rot, but right above it, it may be good. So just prune to that point, right? And make sure it's still in the water, right? You don't want to neglect them of water. So make sure you fill the water back up to where it's touching the roots at least. And with that water level, you do want there to be a little gap in there. We'll cover that. Next up, we'll talk about some cleanliness. Things need to be clean in DWC. I know some people are going to start off clean. They're going to have that RO water. Everything's clean. No hard tap water. I'm using tap water, but some people are already starting sterile. So keep it sterile, that's where it comes into play, pruning out the stuff. You want to keep everything sterile. You want to keep any plant matter, any dead plant matter, any roots or anything like that falls into there. Your grow medium, whether it be the clay pebbles, the dust buildup, make sure you clean them. But you want to make sure none of that stuff is getting in the reservoir. Now, I will make a video on my whole entire cleaning process, but dish soap and bleach should work. Just make sure you rinse thoroughly to make sure there's no left behind soap. Air bubbles in soap, everything's just going to be foamed up. It's going to look like your dish sink and your reservoir if you don't clean out the soap properly. But you just want to make sure your air stones, your buckets, and your airline, all that's good, because gunk's going to build up on the air stones and it can get within it. It could be embedded within it. So if you've cleaned everything, if you've sterilized everything, and guess what? Like I said, the same analogy, right? Well, you still got you may not have gunk visible on the air stone, but you have it within it. It's just like that, you changed the boxes, but your ass crack's still dirty. And then now, guess what? You're just putting that back in there. It's being pushed out by the air, and the system, the environment is right back to where it was, and you're constantly having to go through this. With all the cleaning, right? I'm going to clean my buckets, my airline, my air stones. What I'm doing is I'm picking the plants up, moving them to a different bucket, not a little isolation bucket, the quarantine bucket. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but the quarantine bucket, which I would fill with some water or something like that, and just throw air stone in there, let that bubble as I go clean its regular bucket. Or if you just have the extra buckets laying around, you could just go ahead and switch it to that bucket entirely. But what I do is I'll just put it into a little temporary home, go clean out its original bucket, and then bring it back and then put everything back in there. So while your plants are in that little temporary home, what you can do is you can go ahead and soak them in some cleaning solution. You can use products like Athena Cleanse. I'm not sponsored by them, but that is something I'm running now because I'm running their nutrient line. But you can also go with hydrogen peroxide. Now, I have used this, but I do not know if it worked. Now, I was doing a whole bunch at the time, so I don't know if this was the exact reason it worked. But a lot of people have sworn by it, and I've seen their results. They've told me about it, several people. So if several people are saying something works, then most likely it's going to work for you. And the ratios for the hydrogen peroxide, I believe it's like 1 to every 2 parts of water or 1 to every 4 parts. Please do not quote me on that. Please look it up before you try the hydrogen peroxide. But this is something you do not have to do, but it will help whenever you're making sure everything is sterile before you go ahead and put it back into the fresh new newts and water in the reservoir that you just prepped. Now you're starting over ground zero, everything's sterile, you're good to go. Keep it that way. Alright, so this will be the last step I talk about for eliminating, and I'm also going to be talking about preventive measures. Now, those preventive measures will tie back into eliminating, but I'm just going to keep them separate, right? This is like one of the last steps I do for eliminating. All the preventive stuff, it'll come back and you'll see it makes sense. It's like, oh yeah, you should do that. It helps eliminate it too. But we'll keep that for preventative. But for that last step, we'll cover products. There are several products out there that you can use for either eliminating or preventing root rot. A lot of them have bacillus root inoculant. I probably said that wrong, but that's going to be things like your HydroGuard and your Revitalize. Now, there are several products out there like that. Those are just like the 2 that I've personally used. Now, Revitalize is more potent and concentrated, so you're going to have to use a lot less when using it, or you will kind of get a biofilmed. Now, these are both things I've used from my personal experience, and I have run into that. I would use my Revitalize. I was using 5 milliliters per gallon, and guess what? I was I wasn't running into root rot. It was still some biofilm buildup. It wasn't the root rot though. And guess what? It's treating my plants the same way as root rot does, because it's a film covering the roots, lacking and depriving them of oxygen. So that is one thing I will say. If you use something like Revitalize or something extremely concentrated, just lower the dose of it. Work your way up. Maybe test a bucket out on the side. Maybe you get a little 4 or 5 gallon bucket going on the side with no plants in it. You just mix up everything. You don't got to mix your nutrients, but just get like, a milliliter or half a milliliter, 5 milliliter, whatever the case may be, and mix that Revitalize in water and let it sit for a couple days. If there's some biofilm buildup, then you need to dial it back and kind of see what works for you. Now, I found to be a milliliter max, maybe 0.5 works, but if not, you're probably going to run into some biofilm. And if you want to avoid that altogether, there is a less concentrated product, and this is the product that most of you are probably familiar with, and that is HydroGuard. Now, I have used it, and yes, it does work. It is not as concentrated, and guess what? It is definitely water soluble. It is made for hydroponics, so you don't have to worry about the whole biofilm buildup. That's not going to happen with this, and it's going to help to combat that root rot as well as prevent it from happening. But just because you use those products does not mean you're not going to run into root rot or you're completely safe, right? If you got terrible temperatures, water temperatures, if you've got terrible oxygen and all that, if everything else is way off, then that one thing will not save you. It may be able to, but you got to think, somebody can only carry so much on their back, right? You don't want to have that HydroGuard carrying everything. You don't want that to be the sole factor. So try to get everything else in line. All this other preventive measures I'll cover. Something else I was actually recommended by some of you guys was UC Roots. I used it on a grow and I found it to be quite successful. It worked. It did take a couple of days, and you could apply it like every 3 days. You want to apply, like I was doing 2 milliliters per gallon every couple of days. I was doing like 3 to 4 days. I would just add in some more. So UC Roots, I would recommend that as well. And that may be a little harder to get than something like HydroGuard, but I do know HydroGuard, due to the chemicals, you cannot get it shipped to every state. So you may have to go with something like the Revitalize or the UC Roots. Now, those are the products I have tested and tried myself. There's also some other things like Great White Shark. A lot of people have told me Great White Shark. I have not tried it yet. I actually tried, when I seen that Great White Shark could work, I went and tried mycorrhizae. I just had some like mycorrhizae. I just threw, because I was like, that's what Great White Shark is, right? I threw it in my tank. I don't know if it worked. It wasn't water soluble. It just stayed in there. But that is something a lot of people swear by. So I'm not going to recommend it because I don't have experience, but a lot of other people recommend it. And if you know any other products out there, go ahead and drop them down in the comments. Let's help each other out. I may missed there's probably a whole plethora of products out there. I just do not know about them. And there's probably people in the comment section or people watching this video that would like to know. So try to help some people out and drop that below in the comment section, as well as including links if you can. No weird links now. I know, hey. There's definitely more things you can do to eliminate root rot, and a lot of you may have known them, but those are like my first steps and what I usually just take to go ahead and start combating it. Now let's talk about preventive measures. Let's go ahead and talk about how to prevent it. Now, a lot of this stuff is going to help you. It is going to help you. I covered some of it in my DWC tip video, but now the products can be used as a preventative as well. So that was kind of like a 2-for-1. The products, they can be used to eliminate and prevent. You don't just have to use it for eliminating. So I'm not going to recover that. Now, one of the first things I'll talk about preventing is aeration. You're going to want to have plenty of oxygen. You want your plants to be able to thrive, because guess what? You're already at the disadvantage being in hydro, because if you don't have an air pump, you're going to run into root rot and gunk and all that other buildup stuff. Why? Because guess what? When you mix moisture and low oxygen, that's where that fungus comes into play. I don't know why they thrive in that condition. It makes no sense. It's like, why would you want to be somewhere where there's no oxygen? But beats me. They're able to do it. That's what they like. That's what they thrive in. So stay away from that stuff and try to watch out for your oxygen. So starting off, I didn't know how much oxygen I needed. I didn't know the exact pump I needed. I just went with what came in my setup. It was a cheap setup and I got a cheap pump, right? And it probably would have worked for one bucket. It did work for the grow. I made it to seed to harvest, but that pump was definitely not putting what I needed. As a rule of thumb, you're going to want 1 liter of air per minute for every 4 liters of water. And I know some people use gallons. I personally use gallons, so this is a bit confusing, but 4 liters pretty much equals a gallon, right? So a fourth of a gallon. So you're going to want 1 liter for every gallon, pretty much. So you want 1 liter of air per minute for every gallon. So if you got a setup, a 4-bucket setup, you got 20 gallons altogether of your water solution. Everything, you won't have it all filled up, but we'll say it just in case. We'll round it up. So 4 buckets times 5 gallons, that's 20, and we need a fourth of that. A fourth of that is 5 liters, right? So we need 5 liters per minute to be suitable for that setup, right? Well, a lot of pumps, a lot of them aren't going to say they're going to be in hours. They're going to be like gallons per hour. You may run across some liters per hour, but most of the ones I run in are gallons per hour. Depending on your country, it might already say liters per hour. I already have it converted for you. But what you'll want to do is you want to do the conversion, right? You've already got the per minute. You got 5 liters per minute. Well, guess what? Go ahead and times that by 60 to get your per hour. So you got 300 liters per hour being pumped. And now check your pumps to make sure that's what they're putting out, right? Because I had a pump, it was putting out 250 per hour. I was like, ooh, that's 50 below. That's not, but I made it to harvest, right? So that's where I say you don't need it, but this is what's going to help out a lot. For those of you in gallons, just do the conversion and do the fourth, just convert everything over. But I was recently running a grow, and I had a call for 290 or pretty much 300, right? I needed 300 liters per minute or per hour, and my pump wasn't doing that. I think it was doing like 250 at the time. So I just invested into a commercial pump, right? I get a commercial pump. I think it was like 50, 60 bucks, and it was putting out 1,100 gallons per hour. Now that's way more than that 300, but I mean that 300 is liters, so I'll just have to convert the 300 liters to gallons per hour to get the thing. But even then, the gallons are going to be a little bit less than 300. So you're looking like I'm timesing like 3, 4, 5 of what I actually need. So there's plenty enough oxygen, and now I'm able to run not just 4 buckets, I could run 8 buckets. So that's something to look into. You want to make sure you have the oxygen. Also with oxygen, you're also going to want to make sure your water level. If your water level is too high, you can have that pump and it could be pumping the most air. Your plants are sufficient. But if your water level is too high, then they may not be able to get that oxygen. You still want some roots exposed so they can pull in that oxygen and everything's not being suffocated by water. Something I recommend is about 2 to 3 inches of space between the bottom of the net pot. Now, if you're going to be leaving for the weekend or a little couple of days and you've been testing out, you know how long it takes your plants to empty, but you're just going to push it, whatever, you can fill it up a little bit higher. You can fill it up to the bottom of the net pot, and it'll take a day or two, and it'll be, it's going to be down. After that first 2 days, it's back down to where it needs to be. So the first day they may be like, ugh, but then they're going to quickly like drink it up. They drink pretty rapidly, but don't make that a consistent thing, but that is just something you could do to really stretch out your, having fun, your vacation or whatever. All right, next up, you want that water to have the ideal condition in order to prevent root rot. And what I mean by that is you're going to want, you want the correct temperatures. Well, what are the correct temperatures? Me starting out, I was told as long as it's below 75, it doesn't go over 75, you should be good. You may be able to push it. I seen that somewhere, and that's what I was, but I was running the root rot stuff. I'm like, I'm at 75. Why am I at it? Okay, let me bring it down. I get it to like 72, and I'm still running it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's not recovering that well, or I still, everything else has to be in line in order not to. And something I found out with great success and seeing from others, I did a little bit more research, and I found out you want it anywhere between like 64, 65 to 72, right? Anything over 72, you're most likely going to run into some issues. Me, preferably, what I find to be ideal is 68 degrees. Now, I talked about what happens if it's too high, you're going to run into issues, but also if it's too low, you will also run into issues. So if it goes below 64, you're probably going to run into some stunted growth. Your plants aren't going to grow as fast. That is a possibility. So that is something to look out for. And I know a lot of people like, how do I lower my water temperatures, right? Well, there's several ways you could do that. For one, if you're changing the water consistently, if you're changing it weekly or every couple of days, you may have to do that, but I'm not doing that often. But every time you prep some new water, it's always going to be a little colder because it's sitting out or whatever. It's going to be at that room temperature. If it's away from the lights and everything like that, it's automatically going to be a little bit cooler than once in your reservoir. So a fresh water change is providing, it may be at 68 degrees, right? So you're already giving them that refresh, but it can quickly rise back up. So it can quickly rise back up to 75 degrees if that's what it's been at. So there's some ways that you could do to prevent things like that, and you can get a water chiller. Now that is the most expensive route, and it gives you the most control. I personally do not have a water chiller. If someone were to hit me up and be like, hey, you want to try our water chiller out, I would try it out and show you guys how it works. I know a lot of people in our DWC use that, but you can use it in DWC as well, and that just allows you to have that direct access to be able to fluctuate it to whatever you would like it at. Now, some people don't have the money for that. I feel you. I don't have the money to go invest into a water chiller, and this is something I've been told by a lot of you guys, and that's a frozen water bottle. And I've seen this in several YouTube videos as well. I heard it from a bunch of you, and people, they just freeze water bottles or water packs, whatever, freeze something, and they put that into their reservoir. Now, I know in RDWC, it's a little bit easier because you have that reservoir. You don't have to worry about that, that ice being directly on the roots, because that's where that 64 degrees comes into play. But a lot of people have told me they've put it right in there, just the DWC bucket alone, and it's sat right next to the roots, and they still didn't run into any problems with stunted growth. Now, so a lot of people are sworn by that. So that could be a way to lower your temperature. Another thing you could do to lower temperature is your light intensity. You know, if you decrease lightage, you know, move that driver. If you have the ability to detach the driver, move that outside of the tent. That can lower things in there. Or ventilation, you know, you want things to vent, you know, maybe open some vents, unzip the zipper if you're not in flower to kind of let some, you know, air in there and cool it down. That'll be a few ways. Also, controlling the ambient temperature in your room. One thing I do, I have a portable AC unit and it's pointed directly towards my DWC. I use one tent for my DWC stuff, so it's pointed right there, and that's actually keeping it low. Now I have it set at like 62 degrees and it's pointed right there. That keeps my water between 65 and 68 degrees. So that's perfect. That's one way to do it. And I think I paid around $200 for the portable AC unit, and I think the water chiller is like another $100. Also, one of the last things, and I just started doing this, is running your lights at night. I didn't know about it, but, well, I knew about it, but I didn't really think too much about it. You know, I'm trying to save on electric bill, so it's a, you know, 2-for-1 right here. You'll be able to lower the temperatures because guess what? Your AC unit in your house doesn't have to fight the heat from outside, so it's going to be able to do its job a little bit easier. Your plants in your room, it's not going to be as hot, especially if you have them by a window or whatever. It's automatically going to be cooler at night than during the day, so that is one thing you could do, and you can also save on some bucks by you running your lights at night. All right, one more thing I want to touch on, and I didn't realize, I told you my first grow I didn't do any water changes. I didn't know how important cleanliness was in the grow room. I'm cleaning the tents and everything like that, but I'm not really cleaning, you know, and I didn't understand how important it was, so that's why I'm going over this one again. You want to keep things clean. You want to keep things sterile. DWC, it likes cleanliness. It does not play with the dirt. It wants to, you know, it doesn't want to be changing draws and still sitting with shitty booty or shitty piss booty, whatever, right? It wants some cleanliness. It wants the perfect environment. It's bougie, you know. It likes, hey, it's pristine. It's like, hey, I want this, I want that. No, we're not settling for nothing. She's a 10, but she's picky, right? Like I already said, you want to be changing the water weekly or bi-weekly. Sometimes you may have stuff to do, so you may have to push it to bi-weekly. But sometimes you may have to, like, you know, like I got some buildup. It's only been 3 days since last water change. Let me go ahead and change it again. So it's going to fluctuate. But typically I change weekly. Sometimes I'll change every 5 days. It all depends on what's coming up. Some stuff I know we have to be, you know, we have to fluctuate our schedule as much as we can and be flexible with DWC, even though DWC isn't flexible. But hey, bear with us. I know, trust me, I know. We got to figure out what we can do here and there. You also may find at times that you're going to get fan leaves. You know, you may go to shut your bucket lid and the fan leaf got clipped in there and now it's stuck in there. You may not even notice it until the next time you do a water change. I ran into that several problems. Leaf from another plant may just fell into this bucket. So it's okay. Just remove it, get it out of there. As long as it's, you know, you should be good as long as you're moving out of there. You're always going to see some like little roots falling off and stuff like that. Some sediment may fall off for your hydrants, so make sure you're cleaning those before you even put them into the buckets, because when I first started I just threw them straight in there with my seeds, and then there was clay everywhere the next day, right? So you want to look for stuff like that. You want to keep things clean. Alright guys, I try to fit a bunch of stuff into this video, make it as short as possible without boring you. I know my DWC tip was like 30 minutes long, so I'm sorry about that. So I did try to condense it, and with me doing that I probably left out a bunch of stuff, so that's where I'm counting on you guys. If I may still be in the comments as well, so if I left something out, comment it down below, send those product links, and also if you have any questions, drop them down below and I'll try to answer them the best I can, or somebody else in here can help you. But that's going to be it for this video. Make sure you check out all the other videos. I got a bunch of stuff coming. I'm actually going to be going over a pH. I know a lot of us in DWC, our pH fluctuates and it stresses us out. So I'm going to be going over that shortly, as well as some more seed to harvest videos. I just did one. There's a lot going on with this channel. Like I said, the setup change. There's going to be some more stuff at the end of the year. But that's pretty much it. And I do appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And that's going to be it. Also, get ready to be checking me out on live on Sundays. Go ahead and hit the notifications for that and everything else. Alright, I don't know what I'm doing with my finger, but until next time, peace. What the fuck was the snap for? This video is brought to you with the help of the channel's sponsors. Spider Farmer is a familiar name to most home growers, and that's due to the countless people that use their products. I'm currently using their SE5000 LED grow light, which is a 500 watt light, and I'm using that in my 4x4 tent. This light fits perfectly within my tent and offers max light coverage throughout the entire canopy. I'm honestly a huge fan of the bar style lights, and they do it right over at Spider Farmer, but the main reason I'm attracted to this light is due to the aesthetic and the accents of the orange that these lights, it just caught my eye, and it's part of the logo color, so I had to go with that. They have a huge variety of LEDs ranging from 30 watts all the way up to 1,000 watts, so it's safe to say there's something in there for all growers. If you're interested in checking out any other products, check out the links down below in the description. They'll lead you straight to their website, as well as Spider Farming being nice enough to give us a discount code. So at checkout, make sure you use code DWCFarms and earn yourself a discount. Yes, I do earn commission from referrals, but it's only 3%, so it's not a lot. But at the end of the day, any purchase will help out the channel a lot.